All right, getting ready for another Explorer project today. I'm going to read a book about Leif Eriksson. Just going to do the reading through on this one. You've got instructions posted on a different document. This is just the story. All right. I'm excited to read about Leif Eriksson. This last summer, I was biking in Iceland and I went by this guy's home where he was born. Leif Eriksson and his crew, there we go, stared steadily across the ocean. The crew saw nothing but water, but Leif was certain he saw more. Leif told the crew to travel into the wind. The men rowed hard. They became very tired. Finally, the crew saw a small ship with lumber. It was sinking. Leif and his crew lifted the ship's lumber onto their boat. They pulled the people on board. The people were saved, and the laws of the sea said Leif could keep the lumber as his own. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this. There we go. Leif was lucky. People at home in Greenland would trade cattle and weapons for lumber. Leif would be rich. From that day on, he was known as Leif the Lucky. And I did say that I went to Iceland, which is where he was from, but this mentions that he was in Greenland. That's intriguing to me. Our caption says Leif spotted a ship sinking in the distance. Leif rescued the people and became known as Leif the Lucky. Sounds like it was more lucky for them than it was for him. But he did get a lot of lumber, so that's nice. A Viking Life. Leif Eriksson was a Viking. Vikings lived in Scandinavia in the late 700s to about 1100. Little is known about Leif's life. He was born about 1980. Scholars are not even sure where he was born. Most people say he was born in Iceland. Mr. Geving said he was born in Iceland. We know where he was born. Most of what is known about Leif Eriksson comes from stories. The Vikings told many stories called sagas about their travels. The hero of a saga received much honor. The sagas say Leif was most excellent to look at. He was big and strong. Vikings admired his wisdom and patience. There we go. It's hard to move this book. I don't know how to turn it to the camera here. Leif was the son of Eric the Red. Eric had red hair and a bad temper. He got in trouble for fighting. Eric was told to leave Iceland for 3 years. He had to leave or face being killed. Iceland's leaders met in a large group like this one to decide how to punish Eric the Red. I've been there. I was there just this summer. It's a very, very pretty spot located all between two rock crevices. And they used to meet there once a year and they would decide how things would be decided in regards to law. And someone had to spend the whole time memorizing laws because there wasn't a written language. And so they memorized the laws and they recorded how people were going to be punished. Here, super hard to tell. There it is. This was from this summer. And there's a little kind of gap here in the rock. And if I go what way? This way. I'm finding it. I just got distracted by my own book. There's the gap in the rock. How does this work? There we go. I went hiking down that gap. How cool is that? I knew I picked a good book. Discovery of Greenland. Eric started to explore. He found a crew and loaded his boat. He left Leif and the rest of his family in Iceland. Eric had heard of unsettled land to the west. Years before, a storm blew the ship past Iceland. A sailor thought he saw far away land. Eric decided to find that land. Eric and his crew sailed west. After only a few days, they found unknown land. They followed the coastline. Ice and snow covered most of the land. After 3 years, Eric returned to Iceland. He told people about the new land. He called it Greenland to make it sound better than it really was. He wanted people to settle there. In 986, Eric moved to Greenland. He took his family with him. About 400 other settlers joined him. There's Eric The red, that's his father. Eric and other settlers began farming. They lived on small farms built close to one another. Families raised cattle, sheep, pigs, and goats. The Vikings also hunted and fished. They caught fish in rivers and fjords. Vikings also ate reindeer, polar bear meat. Most Vikings believed in many god. Odin was the main god. He was the father of Thor. Odin was a fearless fighter who carried a spear as a weapon. Leif grew up to be just like his father. He wanted to sail and explore. In one saga, Leif met the king of Norway. The king asked Leif to tell other people about Christianity. Leif returned to Greenland with a priest. They built a church. Leif's friends and most of his family became Christians. There is a church in Greenland. By the late 900s, people in Greenland were running out of space. About 3,000 people lived along the southwest coast. All the good farmland was taken. Leif decided to find more land. He had heard of land farther west. A man named Bjorn Heriulfsson had seen this land years before. Heriulfsson sailed off course in his way from Iceland to Greenland. To the west, he saw land he did not recognize, but he did not go ashore. Leif decided to buy Heriulfsson's boat. He hired Heriulfsson's crew, and they sailed in 1000 or 1001. Vikings sailed in ships looking for more land. Their ships look very different from the European settlers' ships. We're going to do an activity, or we've done an activity. I don't know when you're watching this, where we compare these two ships. Like other Vikings, Leif knew a great deal about sailing. The Vikings often sailed in search of trade and land. Vikings sailed in boats called longships. Their long length made the boats steady in rough water. Strong sails helped the boats travel quickly, but heavy winds could make the boats sail off course. Vikings tried to sail in sight of land. They didn't want to get lost in oceans. They sailed in straight lines away from land. They kept watching one landmark until they could see another. Vikings used science to guide their trips. They studied positions of the sun and the stars. They tested the warmth of the water. They also watched for certain birds or sea animals. These clues helped them find their way. There's some Vikings following birds. What they used to do is they'd bring a bird onto their boat too, and then they'd get out to the middle of the ocean where they couldn't see any land, and they'd release the bird and they'd watch it fly up. And as it flew up, if the bird saw land, it would of course leave the boat and go to the land. And so the Vikings would know what direction to go to find the land. But if the bird flew up and it didn't see any land and it got tired, it had to come back to the boat. And so they knew that they had to come back and keep searching for land. 3 new lands. Leif and his crew retraced Heriulfsson's journey. The wind caught their sails. They traveled quickly. Soon they found several islands made entirely of rock. The rocks were bare. No plants grew there. Leif called the land Hilleland. Hilleland means flat stone rock. Schools of salmon swam near the rock islands. The Vikings caught the fish for food. Leif and his crew continued south and west. The lands they passed had small sandy beaches. Leif looked until he found a beach wide enough to go ashore. The Vikings found many small trees when they landed. Leif calls the island Markland. Markland means forest land. The Vikings sailed south from Markland. As they sailed, they passed longer beaches. The boats took 2 days to sail past one long beach, Vinland. After 2 days, Leif and his crew saw more land. Well, that was an emotional roller coaster. But they didn't know it then, but they were looking at what was now North America. It was the richest land the crew had ever seen. Grass grew tall and green. They saw wild wheat growing in the distance. Leif called this place Vinland. One crew member wandered away from the others. When he returned, he brought wild grapes. Some scholars believe the name Vinland means land of the wild grapes. Other scholars think the name means land of the meadows. Leif's crew gathered wood, grasses, grapes, and other plants. In spring, they headed back to Greenland. Not much is written about Leif after his return. Leif had planned to start a colony in Vinland, but Eric the Red had become ill when Leif was away. When Leif got home, he took over his father's land. He became the leader of Greenland. Leif got married and had several children. He lived with them on his father's farm called Brattahlid. Years later, Leif's brother Thorvald went to Vinland. He and his crew met native people they named Skraelings. Thorvald was killed in battle with the Skraelings. Leif was upset by the news of his brother's death. Many Vikings left to farm colonies in Vinland. Remember, Vinland is North America. But Leif stayed at the farm in Greenland. He never went back to Vinland. Leif's son Thorkeld took over the farm in Brattahlid in 1025. Scholars believe Leif must have died around that time. Small Viking colonies grew along the shores of Vinland around 1100. At that time, the ocean grew colder. More ice formed, and the Vikings could not travel west. Trade was cut off. The settlers of Vinland were never heard from again. Years later, the settlers of Greenland also disappeared. Many scholars are not sure why. Many events could have caused the end of the Greenland settlement. Ships stopped arriving from Norway with trade goods. Greenland's farmland was overused. The settlers' animals had no grass to graze. Inuit people may have attacked from the north. Slowly, many of the settlers left. Others died of illness. No one is completely sure where Leif traveled. Scholars believe Helluland is now Baffin Island. Markland might be a different part of Baffin Island. It could also be now what is Labrador or Quebec, Mr. Geving's favorite spot, in Canada. The location of Vinland is the biggest mystery. Many people believe Vinland is now Lonesome Meadows in Newfoundland, Canada. In 1961, scholar Helga Indested discovered house foundations on the site. Here's a picture of Lonesome Meadows. Lax Meadows is also about a 9-hour bike ride north from where I started. The saga of Leif's journey was often told. It was passed down through many families in Greenland, Iceland, Norway, and Denmark. These stories of new lands carried into other parts of Europe. Christian missionaries brought stories and maps of Markland, Helland, and Vinland back to Italy. These stories and maps encouraged future explorers. In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson created Leif Eriksson Day. Leif Eriksson Day is on October 9. This holiday honors Leif as the first European to visit North America. Here we've got a very nice map. It's got the things we're looking for. It's got a legend, it's got a compass, it's got a scale. It tells us everything about what we're looking at, a title. The only thing that's missing is the date, but I bet I can find the date of this map from a copyright. Some fast facts, and a timeline. This was a good book. I like it.